Imagine you receive a convincing deepfake video from a celebrity, right? Asking for a small but strange favor. Which celebrity would make you pause and actually consider it, even for like a second?
Well, being the fact, it's a tough question because I having followed the deepfake world over the last like 3 or 4 years.
Hey everybody, this is Ten Green. I have a guest here. His name is Paul Vann, and he is the co-founder and CTO of Validia, bringing nearly a decade of experience in cybersecurity and software development despite being only 22 years old. With a background of at Cybereason, ThreatConnect, and Cyborg Security, Paul specialized in automating cybersecurity processes and building AI-driven defensive solutions to counter modern threats. A recognized voice in the cybersecurity community, he was a 2023 top-rated RSA speaker and has spoken on topics ranging from securing the U.S. energy sector to advancing cybersecurity education in K-12 and undergraduate programs. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be on today and share a little bit more about myself and Validia.
Awesome. The first question I usually ask in this segment is, what AI tools do you currently use?
That's a tough one because I use a lot of AI tools today. I'll hit on some of the ones that I'd say I use most commonly. I mean, of course, I'm a big user of tools like chatbots, like ChatGPT, Anthropic Claude. Those are two of my favorite ones today. I also am a big fan of Manus AI. So what's cool about GPT, Anthropic, and Manus AI is they're all really building really cool AI agents that not only are able to answer questions like previous versions of ChatGPT, but are actually able to do work for pretty long periods of time. Again, I mean, actually yesterday, I was a part of the OpenAI Hackathon and had the chance to actually build with their new agents SDK and work with that side of things. So it's long story short, it's really cool to see the AI agents that are being built from a lot of these big AI companies and how they've roped their LLMs into it. But outside of that, again, I'd say it's not just chatbots that I'm using. I use a lot of like image generation, video generation, deepfake technology. For one, for producing some of our own content here at Validia, but also for, actually testing our product, which detects deepfakes. So using tools like Runway ML to create really high quality videos, especially I'd say it's one of the best video and image generation tools. And then playing around with tools like 11 Labs for audio and voice cloning, as well as a few others that are more open source. But the long story short, I use a lot of AI tools. Another one actually that just popped into my head is warp.dev. I use warp.dev. It's a AI terminal for your Mac. So I use it for things like I can tell it to clean up my desktop and put all the screenshots into one folder, and it will do all of it automatically for me. So that one's a really cool one too, but I could talk for an entire hour, probably this entire segment on the AI tools I use.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do they have that for PCs, like for Windows? Because I probably need that for my own.
I think they do. I remember, so I like when I downloaded it, I may have only been Mac, but they were an early company. And the crazy thing is with AI out there today and how much it's speeding up coding, I would say that I would have to guess they probably already have it out there. I mean, the development cycle is just like drastically or it's decreased in time or in length just as a result of all these cool AI tools. So if not there today, I'm sure it's coming anytime in the near future.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, who knows?
So you said that you were at the OpenAI in New York yesterday, and you announced on LinkedIn that you took first place, which is awesome. So congratulations. Can you tell me more a little bit about your experience there and why did you want to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for context, so it's New York Tech Week. I'm based out of New York City. And so New York Tech Week has brought together, people from the tech world all around New York. And obviously, a lot of people have come into town for it as well. And obviously, AI is top of mind for everyone. So, some of the events with Anthropic, OpenAI were awesome ones to check out. NVIDIA Vercel did a great one too. I mean, there were too many good events to even make it to. But OpenAI threw a really cool hackathon for founders to build on top of their new agent SDK. So basically, OpenAI has created a new way to build agents on their platform, and embed OpenAI's models and technology into an agentic flow. And so the purpose of the hackathon was to build the coolest AI agent that you could within a 4.5 hour period. and it was 60 teams. I think they only accepted 8% of people to actually attend the hackathon. And so we had 4.5 hours just to play around, build the coolest agent we can. And so the reason I wanted to do it is, for one, I'm just an AI enthusiast as a whole. At my own company, we sit more on the deepfake detection and looking at like identity side of things. But I just am passionate about everything AI, and I'm really, really passionate from a personal level recently with AI agents and how they're being leveraged, the toolkits that people are building to use them. So I wanted to check it out. I figured it'd be a fun experience. And I ended up having a really good idea when I got there. I spent some time working on it. I was surprised that I got it working. I was like in the 4.5 hour period, but I got it working. I was like, okay, I can present this.
Yeah.
And we pitched to the OpenAI team. I was one of the 3 finalists selected, and we got to pitch to everyone at OpenAI's reception up here. So it was a fun experience. OpenAI killed it on this hackathon. It was one of the better ones I've been to, and I really enjoyed myself. And I even have a cool project to leave with, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in my research before this podcast, I saw that your dad is also in cybersecurity. And that must lead to very, very interesting conversations. Can you recall a recent topic, maybe a new technology or maybe a major breach where you both had different perspective?
Yeah, well, that's like a tale as old as time for me and my dad. Yeah, so for context, my dad is the part of the reason I got into cybersecurity so early. I got into it when I was 12 and have worked in the industry ever since. And what's really interesting is so I sit more on the software development side, like the AI side. That's all my stuff. He's more of like your traditional, like all of running a cybersecurity team, building a security infrastructure, looking at the networking side of things. So what's always awesome is we have like completely different viewpoints on things in cyber. He offers like a lot of really cool insight on more of that, managerial, building a security like infrastructure, building your security team out. And I come with more of all these really cool AI things that I can go and show him. And so I would say, in terms of new stuff, there's not anything like I would say in particular. There was the Coinbase attack that we talked about recently, and I wouldn't say that we have different viewpoints on it. It's more like him and I get to share info with each other that like the other one necessarily doesn't know about or hasn't seen, which is really cool. It's like a very collaborative conversation environment where I tell him about all these cool AI things that are going on, especially in the cybersecurity space, and he goes and checks those out and he explores maybe how he can, work those things into his team and what he's doing. Then he'll fill me in on when I'm building my startup and working on things like how do we get this into a security stack? What do we need to integrate with? What are the things that we need to be doing? He offers so many great insights on that because he's spent his whole career building those things. And so I wouldn't say there was anything we disagree on necessarily. There's just a lot of things that we offer these insights that the other person doesn't really, have, which is beneficial to say the least.
Yeah, different. It's as you said, a collaborative aspects of how you guys can work together.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing in this newer AI world that we live in is, everything that's happening in the AI industry, it's so hard to keep up with it. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do a really good job of is keeping up with what's going on in the AI space. And it's important that, people who are keeping up in the AI space are able to collaborate with people who aren't, because there's so many ways that workflows can be improved. But there's also ways it's like, hey, you know how to implement these things. How do I implement an AI, solution in this scenario? And so conversations across like AI and people who maybe don't have as much experience or AI is newer is just such an important thing.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So as you said, you've been in the industry for 10 years since you were a teenager. How has that mold you into who you are today? Since you started so young in cybersecurity and AI, what do you think brought you, what was your inspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a funny story. So if you look back before I was 12, I was a huge history buff. I participated in the National History Bee. I was all things history. And then I guess maybe around 6th or 7th grade, something kind of shifted for me where I was really interested in software development. And so around the time I was 11, 12, I started looking into learning Python, HTML, some programming languages, just trying to learn, how I could build things or what I could build. And after getting a little bit of experience under my belt, I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do with that new programming knowledge. I wasn't super interested in, building a video game. I wasn't a huge gamer. I wasn't really interested in building just like a website. And so I was kind of trying to find a use case. And so my dad, having been in the cyber industry and me growing up in the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, he took me to a conference called ShmooCon up in Washington, D.C. And I sat in and I saw a talk on honeypots. I remember I had like my notebook and I was just trying to write down everything the speaker said. And I went home, I was like, man, that was really, really cool. Someone can build something that actually catches an attacker and you're tricking a real person who's a bad person. Yeah, I just thought the concept was so cool. And so when I got home, I spent like 3 months building a fake NSA login portal and building a honeypot. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I, like, with the help of my dad, deployed that and started actually collecting real metrics, like attacks coming in from Russia, attacks coming in from China. And so I saw that and I was like, I just built something in 3 months that like is doing this. Like, what are the other possibilities now? So being the fact that this other guy that I had sat in and watched this talk, he had talked about honeypots and something he had done, I figured, hey, I can go, speak at a conference of my own. So I applied to speak at DerbyCon, a cybersecurity conference used to be down in Kentucky. And I got accepted, gave my first talk and was like, this is my thing. And so I started doing some research on the U.S. energy sector, the cybersecurity of U.S. energy and U.S. infrastructure, gave 2 more talks the next year. Long story short, I met my first boss there. Her name's Tony Gidwani. She was the head of threat research at ThreatConnect, and she offered to bring me onto the ThreatConnect team and work there. And the rest is history. I've worked in cyber ever since. I don't think there's been a time that I haven't held the cyber role since then, or like at least some sort of cyber adjacent software development role since then. So I do owe a great deal of gratitude for her for giving me a role at such a young age, and obviously my parents for hiking me around to all these conferences that I was going to and traveling with me.
Yeah, that's impressive. All right. So now imagine you receive a convincing deepfake video from a celebrity, right? Asking for a small but strange favor. Which celebrity would make you pause and actually consider it, even for like a second?
Well, being the fact, it's a tough question because I having followed the deepfake world over the last like 3 or 4 years, it doesn't matter who anything comes from. If it's a weird ask, I naturally question it now. And so, I mean, I would say probably I'm like, as a tech guy, I love a lot of the tech CEOs and like I love following what they're doing. So there's a lot of people in tech that I would really hope that it was real. I would be like, please be real, please don't be a deepfake. But I wouldn't say there's anyone I'd believe today, mainly because, again, having been in this space so long and realizing the capabilities that exist in the deepfake world and the AI world today, I know that any piece of content can look so realistic and not be real, whether it's live, whether it's a video sent to me. But if it came from one of those big tech CEOs, I'd wish that it was real. I would really hope so, at least.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to some serious stuff. How has the emergence of generative AI, particularly tools like ChatGPT, fundamentally transformed social engineering attacks, enabling threat actors to craft more personalized and multilingual phishing campaigns? And what are the immediate and long-term implications for the global workforce security awareness and training programs?
Absolutely. I actually, funny enough, I gave a talk about this at RSA back in 2023 when like ChatGPT 3.5 or 3 had just come out. And it's crazy. I mean, for one, at that time, there were already implications. Now we're looking at models that are 10 times, 15, 100 times better. And so there's a ton of them. For one, one of the biggest issues or friction points for adversaries before tools like ChatGPT was language. Now they could use tools like Google Translate or potentially learn a language, but that was very difficult. That's why a lot of phishing and social engineering emails that people used to get, like asking for like you to go buy gift cards or something, were so poorly written, is because they were created or translated using tools like Google Translate. Now tools like ChatGPT and Anthropic Claude now, I mean, they make it possible for you to basically put something in your own natural language and return it pretty high fidelity with what seems to be or what looks like real, language or real text or a real ask in your given language that you converted it to. And so for one, these tools are completely breaking down language barriers. And what's even crazier is now there's tools on top of these LLMs that will, like, you can speak and on the other end it will come out in the language that you're trying to convert it to. So this doesn't just apply to phone, like to emails, it applies to phone calls, it applies to video conferencing calls now. But aside from that as well, I mean, it's not, it's also the personalization of these phishing and social engineering attacks. I mean, tools like ChatGPT and Anthropic now connect to search engines. So I can say and go into ChatGPT, I want you to learn as much as you can about Paul Vann, the CTO and co-founder of Validia. I want you to craft an email to him based on his personal experiences and some of the stuff he's posted recently, and get a good repertoire with him. Like get in with him and become friends in a way with him. Write that email. It will go find everything. It'll search my LinkedIn. It will go pull things in, and it will write a personalized email for me. And I guess someone actually made a good quote recently, is before AI, there was phishing and there was spear phishing. So phishing was just like mass, like you send out an email to a bunch of people, you automate a lot of it, and hopefully someone bites. Spear phishing was you specifically targeted to someone. And someone made a good comment to me recently, is that every type of phishing now is now spear phishing, because with AI, I can have it automatically run. I can have it automatically customize each email for each person, and all I need to do is just kick off the process. And so it's a crazy world. And even outside of social engineering, we're seeing it too. You can jailbreak, like tools, like, or at least you used to be able to, and you still really can, is jailbreak these AI tools and get them to write malware, get them to like do these things that they definitely shouldn't be used for. But that's part of the harm with new technology, is you build it for a really good use case, and unfortunately adversaries find a way to use it for a negative one.
Yeah, totally. It's scary.
It is. There's always new ways that they're being used too. Like it's just like every week brings a new way that AI and these other technologies and techniques are being used in a negative way. And I just think it's the most important thing, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but the most important thing is just to really stay knowledgeable about it. It's really hard to do with how rapid this space is moving, but the more knowledgeable you remain on this topic, the easier it is for you to spot it when it's happening to you.
Yeah, so speaking of awareness, they have a lot of the cybersecurity awareness training and things like that for employees, and during your first week of onboarding and yearly and all those things. Do you think that uh that trying to spot a deep fake would come into play in those kind of trainings?
It already is. I would say there's some companies like out there, like KnowBe4 is a good example, that does security awareness training, that's already tracking on this problem and working it into their training workflows.
Okay.
And I think it's an incredibly important thing to have in there, because I've talked to people before who don't know that live deepfakes are possible. Like where I can get on this call with you right now, swap my face and swap my voice, and appear to be one of your colleagues, one of your friends, one of your family members. And if you don't know that, if you don't know that that technology or that capability exists, and you ever see it in the wild, you'll never think twice, because, why would you? There's no reason to think, oh, their face is a little blurry, I'm not going to think that's a deep fake. I'll just think they have bad connection. But if you know that this capability exists, then you at least know a little bit of what to look for. Now, unfortunately, I think over the next few years, as these deep fakes get even better and the AI continues to have money, poured into it, and these tools and techniques get better, it'll come to a point where training is necessary, but also training's not enough. And I still think that we are already very close, if not already at that point. But it will be to a point where training, frankly, is not enough. And training is just a necessity to have on, like, and then you need to add something on top of that as well, which is what we're trying to do with Lydia.
So let's see here. What do you think? So what suggestion would you give to some of these employees or even everyday people to look out for in deepfakes? Like how would you counter that? Let's say that I am on a call with my coworker, right? And it's actually a malicious person that is on the other end. What are the tips? What is a tip that you can give to prevent that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're not using any technology solution to detect these things, the most high fidelity way is some sort of passcode. They're not like a passcode, like a password, but like something like, hey, like everyone on our team, our passcode is hamburger, and every time like that we ask for a sensitive thing, whether it be a wire, whether it be giving access to some system, you need to say that passcode. I know it sounds funny. That really is one of the most high fidelity ways to do it without technology. Now, it's not a surefire way because, again, adversaries are attacking the person. You get someone on a call, you're like, hey, what's the passcode? I forgot it. And then someone has it. So it's not a perfect solution, but it is a way. Another thing as well, and I'll say this though, is that, we'll release this podcast and maybe in a month, this actually won't be the case anymore. But for some deepfakes today, you can have people do a full 360 spin. So completely like turn their whole body and face all the way around in a circle. And you will catch evidence of that potential face swap. The other thing as well is to have them move around the camera like this to combat some of those more like pickle AI tools, which like specifically have you here, but that you can't move around in those. So I would say, those are probably the best piece of advice. But like I said, as these tools continue to get better, a lot of these ways to detect it like that go away, especially as adversaries and these companies make the technology not detectable in those means, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Now, what are the profound security risk of unknowingly hiring a malicious actor through a deepfake assisted interview process? And how does this affect internal trust and data integrity?
Yeah, well, we're seeing this happen on an extremely wide scale today. I mean, there's the big DPRK IT worker problem, which most people, if not everyone in the cybersecurity world, is very aware of and looking at. How it impacts you is, when you bring someone into an organization, when you hire someone, you're not just bringing them in and, like they're working in your organization now. You're giving them access to things. And depending on the role, you're giving them access to sensitive IP. So things like your code or like the actual thing that you're making as a company. So potentially, depending on the role, giving them access or like permissions to change other permissions on the IT side or send a wire out. And so when you bring a negative actor or a bad actor like that into your organization, you open up the door to like, you're basically letting the adversary walk right into your organization without them having to execute any sort of advanced attack. And so that's the crazy piece. I mean, I'll give you an example. This obviously was not a successful attack, but KnowBe4 hired a DPRK IT worker or a North Korean adversary who got into their organization, and the first thing they did when they got their laptop was they started to execute malicious commands on their laptop. Now, fortunately, KnowBe4 had some preventions in place to make sure that that did not leave the device or impact anything on an organizational level. But that's just an example. You let someone in and you're giving them access to the keys to the kingdom in a lot of scenarios. And in terms of how it impacts trust, I mean, again, the craziest part about DPRK IT workers and hiring fraud is it's really hard without a technological solution or some sort of baseline identity to ever know if like your colleague or coworker actually is a DPRK IT worker or someone that should not be there. Once they're in the organization, as long as they're doing work, a lot of times they operate as normal employees until, maybe they execute some sort of attack or pull IP out of your organization. So it's a scary scenario where it should really impact people's trust of the people they work with, but there's no set way to say if or if not someone is that adversary or is a fraudulent candidate who got let into the organization. So it's an interesting space and we're seeing it constantly evolve.
Yeah, I can see. So tell me a little bit more about Validia. Like, what do you guys do?
Absolutely. So we started Validia about 2 years ago, both myself and my co-founder, Justin Marciano. And really what we're looking to tackle is hiring and workforce security, ensuring that the people that you bring into your organization are who they say they are, and that once they're in your organization, that identity remains consistent. And so what we do is we do live identity authentication with fraud detection. So from day one, when someone starts interviewing, we establish a baseline identity and ensure that they're not using any fraudulent, impersonation technology, any deepfake technology. We track that identity again all the way from day one, ensure it stays consistent. And then we also have other features as well that look at things like the location they're joining the call from, if they're using a VPN, Tor, or a proxy to hide their location. And now, one of the cooler things that we've released recently for the hiring process is detection of AI assistants, things like Cluely that make it very easy for candidates to cheat on their interview, like make their background seem like they're very experienced when really they may have zero experience. As a whole, the goal of Validia is to ensure that when you bring people into your virtual workplace and they're inside of your virtual workplace, you can trust them, you know who they are, and you know that you're bringing the right person into your organization. It's a huge, huge problem today that we're seeing across the board.
Cool technology.
Yeah, no, it's been, again, I'm our CTO and co-founder, so I lead all of our product development, all of our research and development, and it's been really interesting, to see these, to get these new features in the platform, especially as we're seeing the attack avenues change so rapidly. But our development team has been doing a fantastic job of staying ahead of a lot of these threats, and we're incredibly excited about the roadmap ahead of us and the problems that we're solving.
Yeah. So as a final thought, I always enjoy asking my guests this question. So, if you could be a super, my brain is, if you had a superpower, what would you choose and why?
This is great actually, especially surrounding a lot of the conversations we've had around trust. I would choose the ability to read people's minds, and the reason being is because in this generative AI world, it is so easy to hide, and that idea of trust is completely removed. So if there was one superpower that I could have, it would be to read people's minds, because that breaks down all of those, that gives me that trust, if that makes any sense, and helps resolve that broken trust that generative AI has introduced into our world. So I would say that, because again, trust is something that's already been hard to have before AI came around, especially in the cybersecurity world. Cybersecurity defenders have to not trust as their first line of defense, and then progress it through until they can trust it. But with generative AI, it blurs the lines if it's ever even possible to fully trust something. And so reading people's minds for sure.
So, reading people's mind as your verification method.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to share that with the rest of the world. I honestly read people's minds, but only be able to tell if they're telling the truth about their identity. That's like
It's
the
very
line.
specific. Cool. Well, thank you for joining me on this podcast today. And to everybody, thank you for watching. Bye.